Disney's California Adventure is a very well-known theme park around the world that opened in February 8th of 2001. Now, this theme park has definitely had its bit of a rough transition throughout its lifetime, and it's not really been the smoothest ride for this theme park. Um, Most people know, if you're in the kind of like the Disney community, that DCA is one of the more rougher theme parks that Disney has opened, especially because it opened right in front of the legendary Disneyland. This park was bound to do good, but it definitely had some competition to it. Even in the first year of its opening, Disneyland still beat out the record numbers for this park, kind of showing how uh, belittled this park was whenever it first opened. But of course, as time goes on, this park became a bit more famous than it once was, and is now a staple among all the Disney parks. So, in today's video, we'll be discussing the rise and fall of DCA, what its improvements were, what kind of got it to be the park that it is now, and how it's sort of fallen back to a bit of a hodgepodge park. So back in 2001, the main issue that many people had with DCA was the fact that there was just not really much to do there, and I think the main reason for being is because of what they were trying to base DCA off of. It's called Disney's California Adventure, and it's literally based off of California-themed attractions in the state of California. So it's a bit of a meta theme park, if you will. And honestly, it kind of just left for a not so interesting experience overall, very lackluster, not too many rides. Even some of the worst rides ever, like Superstar Limo, was at there before they replaced it with Monsters Inc. All of this, of course, was changed in 2004 whenever they decided to bring the Tower of Terror, one of the most beloved attractions in Orlando, to DCA. Of course, it did have some changes for budget restraints, and I think spacing as well was a big issue into it. But it was still a beloved attraction nonetheless, and it definitely brought in a lot of crowds to DCA, and just in general, Tower of Terror is a beloved ride wherever you go in Disney. So for them to bring Tower of Terror to this, which was still a kind of sort of California themed attraction with Hollywood and everything like that, it made a lot of sense for them to bring it to the park, and it definitely did boost the population in the park. And from this point on, DCA kind of just like expanded, honestly. It was still heavily based around, California landmarks. Like it had the Grizzly River Run, which was a very popular attraction. It's still there till this day, and it's a very, California wilderness kind of based attraction, which is a fan favorite among, basically anybody that goes there. And you had like soaring and all those attractions that are all just all sort of based around California in general, and I think are very good in this kind of theme park. And then, of course, you had the expansion of Cars Land, which was one of the biggest things that Disney has ever done, and it's just such an incredible land in general. And that was kind of where the park sort of stayed at for a while, and I think that is definitely more of like the peak of DCA in my opinion. That it still had that heavy California feel to it, like California Adventure feel to it that they were going for, but it had a bit of the Disney IP as well. That is until whenever Disney really started going heavy with the IP, and they brought in multiple IPs. For example, like the Marvel Land at DCA, which it's not really, of course, getting the best reviews. I mean, yeah, they changed Tower of Terror to Guardians of the Galaxy, which whenever they first announced that, that was one of the biggest mistakes I feel like Disney ever did. Many people didn't like that idea. Luckily for them, though, they kind of did it good. So a lot of people did appreciate what Guardians of the Galaxy was, and I do think, even though I love Tower of Terror, I do think the Guardians of the Galaxy attraction is really, really cool. And honestly, in my opinion, it's about equal to Tower of Terror. So I do think that that was a okay decision on their part. And then, of course, it changed the Bugs Life land into a MCU land, which overall isn't the worst idea. And then again, over at Paradise Pier, which used to be based off old California piers, they changed that into Pixar Pier, so now every single attraction is Pixar based. Again, I don't really think it's the worst idea ever, but I don't know, it kind of takes away from the whole California theme. Because now instead of having, all these different California, like old school themed attractions, you now have a bunch of Pixar attractions that are kind of in the shape of an old carnival fairground sort of ride. And so I don't necessarily consider this to be an exact fall of Disney's California Adventure. However, I do think that this is a very necessary change that they needed to kind of keep people going into the parks. I do think that there is one key difference that they need to add to the park, though, or just change up, and that is the name of the park in general. I do get DCA has been the name since the beginning of this park's lifetime, so changing its name would be a very, very risky thing to do, especially with like marketing and stuff like that, and just for the fact that this park has been known as California Adventure for so long. However, there's really nothing California about it anymore. I mean, sure, you have Soaring, and sure you have Grizzly River Run, but honestly, those aren't enough, in my opinion, to be to call this park, California. I mean, these two used to have like the Hollywood backlot with the Tower of Terror. Again, like I said, very California, themed. And then of course you had the other places that were kind of tying into it, especially Paradise Pier, which was just very California based, like the beaches and stuff like that. And now it's kind of like still kind of has that style, but it's with the Disney IPs. So I definitely think that they need to change the name to something, and I think that would honestly just make the park flow a lot better. It's just the name and the way that they market this park, I feel like does need to change a little bit. Not only that, but I do feel like because of kind of the failure of the MCU land, they sort of need to add something a little extra to the park and fast, so that way people, actually have a reason to really want to go to this park. Because right now, I feel like the only buzz that this park ever gets nowadays is like during Halloween time, whenever the Boogie Bash comes into town or whatever, and they set up this whole big like trick or treat fest thing. That's really really cool, and I think that's a cool, unique idea for them to add to the park to get people to come here. But that only comes, a few times out of the year. I do think that they definitely need to add a new star attraction to DCA, because all these other theme parks around the world for Disney, they're getting multiple new attractions, multiple new IP based lands and stuff like that, and a lot of people are going to these things. The last thing that DCA got was that whole MCU area, and it's not really doing the best at all. There's not really a whole lot there. Web Slingers is, we've said it countless times on this channel, it's just not one of the best attractions generally. Now, I don't think that, it's going to stay like this. I know that they for sure do have plans to add like a whole Avengers themed experience, which is really, really cool, as we had that concept art from D23 this year, which had like Thanos in the middle of it. So as you see here, so yeah, obviously they have some pretty big things planned, which is really exciting for this park in general. And I have a feeling that this Avengers ride is going to be one of the biggest things, that they're ever going to put in any Disney park. It's an entire Avengers ride. Like, who wouldn't want to do that, right? So I do think that there is a lot of hope for DCA to still kind of come back to the park, which I think we all thought it once was. The whole California theme, I think, was once there, and it was doing pretty well. But of course, like all things with Disney, they do change it just to kind of keep it going. So I do think that where the park stands right now, it's for the most part okay. They definitely need to add something else, and I think that Avengers ride is what it's missing, but hopefully we'll be getting that soon enough. And I do think that even with the Avengers ride adding on there, they definitely still need to change the name of this theme park. I just think the whole marketing of the park as being a whole California theme-based park, it's dead, it's non-existent anymore, and it's definitely more of just a Disney IP based park, which is there's nothing wrong with that if the whole park is IP based. They need to name it to that. But yeah. Anyways, guys, tell me down in the comments below, where do you put DCA at right now with all the rest of the parks? Do you think it's at its peak? Do you think it's at its lowest point right now? Just tell me, what do you think of this park in general? I don't think this park gets enough attention generally in the community, and that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it in this video. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.